on Managing Creative Studios, we are joined by deZoete. She's illustrated over 30 children's books and animated Disney films like Simba's Pride and TV shows like Timon and Pumbaa. Now she's the studio manager for an in-house design and production team at SkyCity Entertainment Group, managing a fast-paced studio and one of New Zealand's most vibrant entertainment companies. So whether you're leading a team or just starting out in the creative industry, this episode is full of insight and inspiration. Welcome to the podcast, Claire.
Thank you, Susan. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So I wanted to start right back at the beginning. So I was watching a video the other day of Brad Bird, who is the director of The Incredibles, and he directed The Iron Giant, which is one of my favourite films. And he talks about how a family friend had showed him how to rig up a camera, and he was drawing with chalk outside on the ground. He'd take a photo of it, he'd rub it out, he'd draw another picture, he'd take a photo of it, rub it out. So he was animating from the age of 11. And obviously there's just a moment where he knew, or at least his parents knew, that he was destined for animation. So I wonder if there might have been a moment that you had where you knew you were destined for animation or illustration.
There was definitely a moment. It wasn't when I was 11. I didn't really know. I just loved to draw. My mum said that all she had to do was give me a notebook and I would be quiet.
Yeah.
So she would carry a notebook around with her all the time and I would just draw in that. That was my, my childhood's version of a phone.
Yeah.
So my moment came when I was about 16, 17 and I was, wondering what to do, coming to the end of school, what was I going to do? And I looked at graphic design. I went to the career counselling at school and we were looking at graphic design, and then I saw Beauty and the Beast, and that came out in the 90s, and I was just, that was it. That was the moment. I just knew I just wanted to do that. The way that a drawing can emote and get someone to, and the whole production of it, the backgrounds, the character design, everything, the whole thing, it blew me away, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, and Disney's very good at being emotive, right? Every little girl wants to be a Disney princess. Well, I certainly did.
Well, yeah, I've always loved Disney movies, but that was a thing. So, yeah, that was my moment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you've worked on a lot of Disney productions.
Yes.
Timon and Pumbaa,
Yes.
Beauty and the Beast,
Yes.
Simba's Pride. That's Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas,
Yes.
not the original.
The sequel. The sequel.
Yeah. Simba's Pride, which is Lion King 2.
The sequel to that.
And so how did these opportunities come about? Like, was there an animation test involved? Did you go to university and study animation? How do you work for Disney?
Yeah, good question. I was really lucky at the time that work was coming into the country. I worked for one company that worked for Warner Brothers. I wasn't there too long, but I did my training course there, which was 6 months long.
Yeah.
I did that company called Freelance Animators. And I did the 6-month course there, and then I was hired as an assistant animator, so I got to work under an animator. And we worked for Warner Brothers, and then there was a lull. We all sort of got laid off, unfortunately, happens a bit. And another studio started up in the meantime, and the lady who started that had a connection with Disney because she worked for Disney herself, and so she brought that work into the country, which is, I was so blessed and so lucky to have that opportunity at that time. So we worked on all the ones that you've mentioned there. We also had a great project which was called Redux Red Riding Hood. So we had that was for Disney. It was very out there for Disney.
Yeah.
And we had an American director come over and direct that. That was, amazing. It actually got nominated for an Academy Award for a short film or something.
Nice.
So I did a 6-month course to get into that, but it was really just luck. It was the work that was around at the time.
Yeah.
And, and then to work on the movies, Enchanted Christmas and Simba's Pride, was again through this lady who had these connections, and she very kindly introduced me, and I didn't really have to do a test. I just got in there and and did it.
Yeah.
But it was very different back then. We didn't have the technology that we have nowadays. We didn't have, you didn't draw straight into a computer. You drew it on paper, and then you had to line test it. And line testers were hard to come by, and it was a very different process.
Yeah.
It's much more instantaneous now, whereas back then it was, you really had to figure it out and know your stuff, because you couldn't just test it and you knew it was working. So
yeah, and so was that straight out of high school? Sorry, that you're doing this course.
Yeah. So I left at the end of sixth form because I decided that was it. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I was committed. But I committed to the end of sixth form, and I made sure that if it all went belly up, I was going to be able to get into university. So I've worked hard to do well at school, and then I went and did my course at the end of sixth form, which would make me 18.
Yeah, young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to go back. Yeah.
Young, and then straight into Disney.
Yeah.
So I was watching Frank and Ollie, which is a documentary that's on Disney at the moment about 2 of the 9 old men from Disney.
Oh, yeah.
And Frank Thomas, he they've both worked on, some of those classics, Bambi and Snow White and everything.
Yeah.
Amazing animators. And he, in this documentary, he said this quote that reminded me a lot of you. He was talking about romance, and he was talking about how he's a romantic, and that how he's a dreamer, and he dreams about the connections between the trees and the sky and the grasses and the animals, and he's like a realist would struggle with these kinds of ideas. But if you're entering an imaginary field like animation, you'd better come equipped with that kind of nonsense.
Oh my God, so true.
Yeah, what I feel is like he's saying that there's a certain type of person that goes into animation. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, there's all types of people in creative fields, and I think it's a danger to sort of say it can only be one type of person in that field, to the exclusion of the other skills that other people bring. But that's certainly, and I've worked with a lot of people in animation who wouldn't resonate with that, but I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah.
I've always felt a connection to the world around me,
Yeah.
but I have a very strong realistic bone running through me, which helps me manage a studio, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not just about creating, it's about how we create it.
Yeah.
Not just having a dream, but how do we dream it and how do we make it happen? So yeah, I think it's good to have both.
Yeah. It's it reminds me a lot of your work, because you do a lot of creations with woodland creatures, your fairies drawings, your animals, and you actually sent me an artwork on Instagram last night about this artist who creates things out of like garbage, and from one angle it looks like garbage, and then you move the camera around and it's this beautiful artwork of like a bird or something, and and I was thinking, that quote just reminds me so much of you, the connections between all things. And so I've done a lot of research on you, but I know you quite well as well. Like Claire and I go way back. We've worked together at Flux Animation Studio. That's where we met, I think.
Yeah.
I had to look this up on LinkedIn. It was 15 years ago that we would have met at Flux. Cause,
wow.
Yeah, I started there doing an internship in September because I was still at uni, and I was working on the backgrounds for Stains Down Drains.
Yeah.
And you would have been animating Stains Down Drains, wouldn't you? Or were you doing?
do?
You wouldn't been doing backgrounds. You would have been animating, would you?
I did all sorts.
Yeah.
I just move around wherever they need me. There I go.
Yeah, because you were at
remember.
Flux for quite a while, weren't you?
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing traditional 2D for them, and did you do Toon Boom as well?
I learnt Toon Boom as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But looking at your IMDb, which is impressive, by the way. Did you ever? There's no 3D work on there. So was there a reason you never sort of moved into the 3D space of animation, and you just stuck with the 2D?
I actually regret not moving into 3D, but one of the reasons that I got into 2D, it was the only thing available at the time, but I love to draw, and that's why I moved into illustration, because drawing was my thing, and it wasn't so much about the animation, it was about the drawing and the animation. So I loved that. I loved that skill. And I think I sort of clung on to that. But this is something that I would probably encourage people who are learning is, don't run away from the technology. It's not that I ran away. I was just prioritizing what was important to me.
Yeah.
but also not having the right technology and the exposure to the right technology held me back, I think, from learning it. So if you've got an opportunity to grab hold of a technology, then go for it.
Yeah. I mean, 3D's not for everybody, but...
No. I think I'd also heard a lot of people say that you're just working on one piece, like you just might work on how the hair animates.
Yeah.
And how the cape animates, or how...
That's a story we got at uni as well. They used to tell us that. But it depends on where you're working.
Yeah.
Like, if you're working for a really large company, sure. But if you're working for a small company, it's not the case at all. That's interesting.
Did you ever learn 3D?
I did learn 3D. So I learned 3D at university, but I never really used it. So my first industry job was at Flux, and I did background art, and then I sort of moved from that into doing motion graphics and editing and things like that. So I never went back. I actually wanted to be an animator, which is why I went to that particular course. But it never panned out that way. I still work in the creative industry, but I just sort of went down a different path. So of all the projects that you've worked on in your animation days, is there one that stands out as particularly meaningful or fun?
Yeah, I mean, 100% working on the Enchanted Christmas and I got to do Belle. Yeah. And that was just my dream. I mean, I just fangirled all over that.
Especially as the original is like the reason you got into animation. That's cool.
Yeah. Because because it was a big production, they were treating it like they do with the original, is that different animators specialised on different characters. So I got to specialise in Belle, and that was, a dream.
That's really
dream come
cool.
true. Yeah. And the other really fun one was that one at Redux Red Riding Hood. That was really fun.
That.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. Yeah.
Feature film, right?
It wasn't a feature film, but it wasn't TV. It was like a short.
Oh, cool.
A short film. Yeah.
I did see it, on your IMDb, but haven't seen it, so I'll put it on the list.
Funny story about the IMDb. I didn't create it.
Who creates them?
I don't know.
Somebody knows a lot about you, because it's got the episodes that you actually worked on, and I cross-checked those against the showreel that you'd sent me.
Yeah.
Did
you? You did your research.
Yeah, someone knows about you.
Well, no, I did do those ones. I did get into them, I did, but I didn't start it up originally. Someone else created it and had a whole bunch of things in there, and because I Googled myself, as you do from time to time, and I was like, where did that come from? I have no idea who set that up.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was funny.
Well, yeah, it's cool.
I know.
It's impressive.
Okay, cool.
We do have a little clip here of something that you've worked on, if we can bring it up.
What are you going to get him?
I don't really know him well enough to know what he would want.
What would you want?
Well, what I love most in the world are my books. My stories.
Why don't you give the master a story?
So for those who aren't watching the YouTube version of this, what we were watching was Chip the Teacup talking to Belle about what they were going to get Beast for Christmas. And the shot that Claire animated was that first shot of Belle there. So Claire, my question for you is, how much work goes into a sequence of clips like that?
A lot.
Yeah?
I mean, if you know 2D animation, like 24 frames a second, 12 drawings a second.
Yeah.
So if it's... And they try to keep them fairly short. But yeah, I mean, it's days of work. And if
so there's 12 frames a second?
No, 24.
24 frames a second in film, right?
Yeah. And 12 drawings a second, because they hold each drawing for 2 frames. Oh, okay. Unless it's on ones. Yeah. But it's usually on 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so with you animating Belle, so in a scene like that, would you be animating both characters, or would you just be animating one character and someone else is doing the other?
Yeah, and that's if it was since it's cut up like that, no, someone else would have done it, unless if it's TV, then I would have probably been given a sequence, a whole set, and I would have done all the characters, but because of this I just did Belle. Yeah.
And then, so how does that work in detail? So does somebody do, somebody does the key poses, right? And then somebody does the in-betweens, or did you do all of it?
I did it all on that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they sort of trust you to, like, there's some cute little things in there, like where she puts her hair behind her ear and stuff like that. Do you decide that that's going to happen, or is that sort of, does the director tell you that that's what's going to happen? Or
No.
those little details, does that come from the animator?
A lot, yeah. Yes, basically. Some of it's in the storyboard.
Yeah.
Some of it's the decision of the animator, and a lot of what I did was informed by the soundtrack. So it's really important to have a great read from your actor.
Yeah.
It's a special skill to be able to have nuances and emphasis and stuff, because that gives the artist and the animator something to act from. And I always call myself an actor with a pencil. So I can't act for peanuts if you put me, if I'm actually trying to act. But put me behind a pencil, I can do it. And give me a good read, and I can give you a good performance.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so let me reframe the question a little bit. How much stress goes into a shot like that, or a clip like that?
Any creative process has got times where it's flowing and times where it doesn't, and I remember seeing this picture. It was a cartoon, and it had 2 frames. One frame was the myth and sort of how people think animators are, and it's a party full of people and they're all telling jokes and ha ha ha. And then there was another frame, and it said the reality, and it's an artist with the drawing board there. It's covered in cobwebs, and they're sitting in the corner in a pile of wee, basically. Sort of like the reality versus the myth. Yeah. So I think that any creative process has that aspect where, you're in the flow and it's going really well and you're like, this is great. Or you're like, oh God, I just really can't face it today.
Yeah.
And the beauty of working every day is that you have to confront that demon every day. You have to find a way to work your way through that process, and have peace with that process, because it is sometimes within one project you can be starting out great, and then it's like, oh no, this is not good, this is not good. And then you come back full circle and actually no, this is great, and look what I did, I created this amazing thing. So
you have to push through.
And the good thing I found about working in animation every day is that you had to show up for work, and you had to do it, and you had to push through. And if you've got good support around you, you've got people that you can just sort of ask their opinion of, or just go for a walk. Just go for a walk around the block, Sometimes that's all it takes. But I do have a technique that I've developed over the time that stands me in good stead. And I sort of call it following the energy. So even if you're just working not on a scene but on a drawing, and part of that drawing is just not coming together, it's looking terrible. So you go where the energy is. So I can do this part really well. So you go there and you use that energy to come back to the part that's not going so well. Yeah. So you just keep moving around until you can tackle that piece and use the energy of the winds to go through the thing that's not.
Oh, that's good
so,
advice.
So I do that within a drawing, but you can do that within a scene, or you can apply that to anything creative, basically.
Yeah.
And also not just follow the energy of the winds, but also figure out what the absolute key points are that you need. Like in animation, you've got your keys, your breaks, and your in-betweens. That's how you break up a scene. So if you're looking at it and you're going, this is really tough, I don't know, I've got 4 seconds to fill in, I've got 3 characters, oh my God, what am I going to do? What do I have to do? What do I have to hit? I've got to hit. This scene or this artwork or whatever it is, this has to be the result. I've got to communicate this in my artwork. So where does that hit? And then you've got your voice read, say, where does it hit in the voice read? It hits here. So I know I need a key pose right here. And I know I need a starting pose, and I know I need to get to the end, and in the middle I've got to hit this note. So there's your key poses. I know if I have a key pose here, I need to do an anticipation. I need to do an antic. So that needs to have a certain amount of frames. It's got to come back to here. So you work out the structure, and I think that applies to working on a graphic design piece as well. It's like, what am I trying to say? What do I need to hit? Within what time frame? Within what budget?
Breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's good to know what those boundaries are.
Yeah.
And then you break it down, because otherwise it can seem very overwhelming.
Yeah. So let's move on to your illustration and your storytelling. So you've illustrated how many children's books, do you reckon?
I reckon it's at least 30.
Yeah? That's a lot.
Yeah.
So what sort of drew you to that space? Were you illustrating and animating, at the same time?
Yes.
Or were you bouncing around, or did you sort of move into it?
Well, I was a freelancer. So, I would move around. Sometimes I'd have animation work. Sometimes I'd have illustration work. I got into that. I decided that's where I want to go, and just started approaching different publishers with my portfolio and working on it, and had some breaks and got some good work. Yeah.
There's one illustration that I found. I don't know if it's from you, but it was... There's one that has a clear deZoete on it that got illustrated.
Yeah.
That's very different to all of your other illustrations. Yes. So my question is, because a lot of your stuff is, very soft and sort of, beautiful, and this was so different. And I thought, what's the process here? Do you have like an agent that tells you what jobs to do, or do you just take whatever jobs that come your way, or were you picking and choosing?
Oh, I didn't have the luxury of picking and choosing all the time. No, it's a very different style. And I think that's just the journey that I was on, really, is to find... some people I know have worked with people whose style is really, really distinct. That can be a good thing if you find that pathway that suits that. But for me, I found that my style was... Although my style's always been quite graceful in a lot of ways, I was on quite a journey to find what it was that was important to me to express about myself and my artwork. So along the way I tried out different things. That's a creative process, and I don't regret that process, but I look at some of those pieces of work and I wouldn't do that. That's not me. I wouldn't do that again. But
finding out what works for you.
Finding out what works for you, and what it is that's unique about you that you want to put into your artwork and put in the world.
Nice. I also found a Scholastic write-up on you when you were illustrating, and it mentions Claire received a lot of encouragement in her life, including a fellow illustrator who helped her develop her style. Do you remember who that illustrator was that helped you develop your style? Or were you just bullshitting?
Never. I think at the time it was my partner at the time, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I was with a fellow animator, and he encouraged me to work on my own style. He was one of those people who had a very distinct style of his own, and he encouraged me. Watching him develop and watching him work with that very unique style. I wanted to find that for me, but I wasn't quite sure what that was. Yeah.
How long do you think it took you to develop that sort of style, the clear style?
You know what? I find with a lot of these things that all sorts of different parts of life, not just creativity, but often it's there at the start, and you come full circle, but you come full circle with more understanding of why. So I think it was always there, but then I sort of wandered around. Oh, God, I would say it probably took about 20 years to just sort of honour it and to come back to it and say this is me, and not be trying to follow a trend or not try to accommodate too many people, and just try to say this is me, this is what I'm good at. Yeah.
Do you think, from the outside looking in, someone would see a distinctive style throughout your entire career?
Possibly.
Yeah. Because when looking at your work, I do see a particular style, but then I don't know, I've looked back at some of your older books and things, but again, with illustration, you're probably having to do what you're told in a certain form, or do you get creative freedom when you're illustrating books?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent, but you're also chosen because of the style that you put out there. And I think I was trying to try different styles on to get more work as well. Because putting yourself in a box and owning that space can lead to more work, and it can also cut you off from other work. So
how much does the writer of the book get to choose what things look like versus how much do you, and versus how much does the publisher?
Yeah, I think they don't come to you until they've probably run it past the author. This is the person that we think would be, look, your work would look good with that person. I think that happens
And
before they even come to you.
Do you meet with the author and then talk about how it's going to go or anything, or do you just like whip something up and then the author says yes or no?
I guess it depends. I've worked in different ways, and when I've worked on a reader like the one that you showed me, that illustrator, that writer has probably just given the thing over and just kind of left it. I don't think they get much choice. But working on something like Bumblebee Pie, that's more, and the Miss Primrose books, that's more working with the author. But I didn't get a chance to actually sit with them, meet them, because they're in different parts of the country. So
Days before.
These days we do a Zoom, but we don't do the Zooms back in the day.
Yeah, I mean those must have been quite popular ones, because looking up, if you Google Claire deZoete illustrator New Zealand, Miss Primrose comes up a lot.
Does it?
And the Bumblebee one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though I was going to buy them from Wickles, but I couldn't. But
I got some copies. You can have some copies.
So what medium did you... I know you've done a lot of digital artwork recently, which I've seen really, really beautiful children's illustration.
Thanks.
What medium do you enjoy working in most? Is it digital, or do you prefer the traditional sort of... And what were you using when you were doing traditional media?
I tried a lot of, again, part of that exploration, tried a lot of different mediums. I think that's a great way to go. You should try, because you try and find that thing that works for you. And experimentation is the heart of creativity, really. If you don't try, you don't find something new. But I think my soul medium is a watercolor style. So I taught myself to paint in watercolors in Atrophact, and what I love about watercolor is that you don't really have any option. You've got to flow with how the medium flows. So you've got to be prepared to pivot. If the paint goes that way, you can't really cover that up too well. You've got to just go, oh, well, that wasn't what I expected it to do, but, let's go with it. Whereas other mediums are a little bit more, oh, well, that's not working very well, so I'll just cover over it. And I liked that impromptu-ness of watercolour and the free-flowingness. That suits me quite well. And then I've moved into digital watercolour.
Yeah.
But it's always good to try new things.
Yeah, I like that you taught yourself watercolour as well. Yeah. Who needs YouTube?
I don't think YouTube was really around when I was
No.
God, it's making me sound old. I looked at books like The Flower Fairies and Brambley Hedge, all that stuff that you can see heavily influencing my artwork. I looked at what they did, and I just sort of basically copied until I could try to replicate, or at least find my version of it.
Yeah, and the digital work that you do is still sort of very akin to watercolour, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
We'll move on now to your sort of transition into studio management. So what motivated you to go from a real hands-on sort of job where you're, on the tools to moving into more of a workflow management job? Because you did sort of traffic management before you went into studio management.
Yeah, I'd been in the industry for 26 years, and I'd done pretty much everything that I could possibly consider doing at that point in time. And I just needed to, there's a bunch of things. I just needed to try something different. I needed more stability because I had a young child, and I needed more stability, financial stability. And I just wanted to challenge myself and find out something else that I could do that wasn't just drawing. I wanted to be able to, what else can I do? What else can I be good at? So that kind of was behind that decision.
Yeah.
And it was a great decision. Yeah. It's been a really interesting ride. Lots of learning.
Yeah.
But at times I felt, this is the thing. This is the other part of myself that I didn't realize that I was actually applying to my creativity, more of a process, and a process design and that kind of thing. And then the people leadership and that kind of those soft skills that you don't get to sort of practice so much when you're sitting behind your drawing board. So that's been an amazing journey. I'm really proud, really glad I took it. Yeah.
And now you're the studio manager at SkyCity.
Yes.
Which is a huge operation.
Yes.
So, I mean, SkyCity, for people that don't know, I mean, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of what SkyCity is, how big it is?
Oh, sure, I wouldn't do it justice. It's massive.
Yeah.
A lot of people think of it as just obviously the casino, but there are so many restaurants,
21 bars and restaurants?
I don't know if it's quite that, but it sort of fluctuates. But yeah, there's like 15 or so at least at the moment. 3 hotels now. In the casino, there's a theatre, there's all the entertainment that they do. Just a massive operation. So our studio team touches everything as well as the corporate documents, and it just keeps us very busy. We're a very bustling little studio that gets through a lot of different brands and a lot of different work.
Yeah.
Always keeps it pretty engaging.
Yeah, it's huge. So there's like the Sky Tower, which does
the Sky Tower
promotions. Yeah, the iconic Sky Tower.
Yes.
You've got a hotel over in Adelaide now as well, SkyCity, and there's the theatre. I don't know if you mentioned that as well. And it's just huge. Huge.
It's bigger than people
studio.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. So how big is your studio team, and sort of what sort of work flows through it?
Well, it changes all the time. At the moment, it's 3 production staff, including myself, 4 artists, and then a head of creative studio. So it ebbs and it flows, but that's kind of the basic structure of it. Yeah. What was the second part of your question?
What sort of work flows through the studio?
We do everything, basically. We are just the Auckland studio, so the other sites have their own studio, but we're sort of the main one, so we're dealing with the corporate documents. And
the other sites are Hamilton, Queenstown,
and Adelaide. Yeah, and they've all got their own studios. So we handle the marketing side of things, so all the marketing campaigns, and then we handle the corporate documents. And as one of my staff members say, the toilet signs. We have to do the toilet signs.
Yeah, it's a lot of wayfinding in that job.
Yeah, a lot of signage. Yeah. So anything that comes our way.
Yeah. So, I mean, your main client is, I know from my time there, but is the marketing team, right? So you work closely with the marketing team. But there's other clients around the different precinct that come to you.
Yes.
Yeah, for basically everything and anything. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. We got a lot of stuff through the corporate side of things as well, and they will come direct to me rather than through the marketing team. So, part studio manager, part account manager,
part firefighter.
Part everything. It keeps me on my toes.
Yeah. So roughly how many projects would come through your studio in a month, and what sort of deliverables are they specifically?
Wow. Probably up to 100, I'd say, of individual briefs. And then within that subtask, some of, talking about the project management system that we use, it's tasks and subtasks. So someone briefs in a task, a brief, and then within that is a whole bunch of what we call subtasks. So some of them, we've got a really big one right now, and we're looking at, 90. When we opened Horizon Hotel last year, it was like 90 outputs for that, which ranged from the marketing campaign to the collateral that was needed for the hotel, or signage. Some of the signage was done by a signage company, but we also did the individual signage, and then launching booklets and launch parties, and just such a range.
There's a lot of touch points that go into everything within that huge precinct, isn't there?
Yeah. There's a lot of diversity, which keeps it. When we have freelancers coming in, they're always like, I get to work on lots of different brands and lots of different, not just doing a mailer, and I'm not just doing this. I'm doing packaging. I'm doing a marketing campaign. I'm doing
Yeah.
all
You
sorts.
don't do as many mailers anymore, do
Nah,
you? Yeah.
nah. We do it digital. I mean, digital has changed things a lot, I
Yeah.
think. We still do a lot of print because we do a lot of printing on site. So there's still a lot of print, but a lot of campaigns are more and more digital. And the campaigns are getting more and more complex, and I think that is social media. So it's not just do one piece of artwork, roll it out, and it all looks the same, depending on where it is. It's like, well, this is going to go on Facebook or this is going to go on Instagram, and it needs to be engaging for that environment.
Yeah, more targeted.
Yeah, so it's very customized campaigns now. I think it's quite different.
Yeah. And, I mean, having worked at SkyCity myself a while back, I know that it does some quirky, you've got some quirky projects out there, some really big, cool stuff. Like, so in my time there, I was managing the creative studio, and this marketing team came and they wanted to create a big safe, and so we put the safe on this casino floor, and so we had to come up with how we create it, and we had to put fake money inside. So it was about as tall as me almost, and had this huge perspex sort of box, and we put fake money in there, so it looked like there was 10 grand in there, and this gas bottle underneath, and then when the casino goers punch their number in. The one person that's going to get it correct, there's a gas bottle underneath that makes the door go psh and sort of opens.
That's
and
cool.
Someone wins $10,000. I think it was 10 grand anyway.
That's so cool.
It was amazing to put together. And then we had another one that was really cool where we had the marketing team came up with a school holidays idea up the tower where you had I don't know if it's the world's tallest ball pit or highest ball pit, or is it the highest ball pit in the Southern Hemisphere. But yeah, we put a ball pit up the tower, and so they came to studio, and studio has to figure out how to create a ball pit. And, we got to play in it and stuff. And there's some disgusting things in the bottom of that ball pit when we took it down. But, there's some cool projects because Sky City's so huge. You've got all the festivals that go on in the plaza and everything that goes on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are some of the highlights that you've worked on in your time there?
One of the greatest ones was in line with what you're saying was called SkyCity, and it was just such a deep project to work on. Not deep as in deep and meaningful, but deep as in there was a lot of reach in there and lots of complexity, which made it quite fun. It was very multi-channel activation where people had to sort of hunt around and find codes and then watch videos that had clues and stuff like that.
Yeah, quite experiential.
Yeah, very experiential. There's a lot of that stuff at SkyCity. So there's a lot of challenges to solve, and I think that's where the creative brain really loves to be is give me a problem to solve and let me apply innovation and creativity to that problem. So
and then studio has to figure it out.
How do we've got a great idea. How do we do it?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, 5 Digital. I have had the pleasure of working with 5 Digital closely for over 8 years now, and they are my go-to for all digital print jobs. They offer some really impressive embellishment options like digital foiling, metallic inks, and even fluoro colours, which always take the project right to that next level. And what's really stuck with me, though, is how supportive they've been from the beginning. When I was a young studio coordinator, still figuring out the print world, they took the time to explain the processes and the terminology so that I could feel confident running projects. And that kind of generosity and care made such a difference. They're consistently delivering high quality work, and they've even won gold at the Pride and Print Awards 5 years in a row, so you're in good hands. If you need any printing done, check them out at 5digital.co.nz. I will pop the link in the show notes for you. A huge thanks to the team at 5 Digital for supporting this episode. So in terms of your systems and processes in the production of your studio, how's it structured, and what tools are you using, and what software do you use to keep things moving and stuff?
So we use a project management system called Reich.
I know it well.
You know it well. I know you know it well.
Yeah.
I mean, any project management system is crucial for a studio. And then we're on Macs, and we use Adobe, obviously, like most people, most design studios. And
are you using anything cloud-based to share files? Where do you store all your logos and your photos that you share with other areas of the business and stuff like that?
We used to have a DAM, a digital asset manager, but we let go of that recently because no one was really using it, it seemed.
Yes.
yeah, at least in the marketing team, we sort of went around and no one was really using it. So we let that go.
Do you think that no one's using it because it was difficult to use, or was there no training involved? Or do people not know where to find things?
I don't know.
Do you think people always default? I always find that people default to what they know. So they'll just they'll email studio and be like, where's this file?
I don't know.
Instead of finding it themselves.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure why people weren't using it. I was told that it wasn't very pretty.
Yeah.
And so the interface wasn't that user-friendly and easy to use.
I see. Yeah, that's always a problem with certain applications.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't easily searchable. I'm not sure. Just people weren't really using it. So it was something that we let go of. But then I did find there was a need around the business to share files. So I do have a solution for that, which it's SharePoint or OneDrive where I have, and I just add people to that who say, I need this, and I go, here's one I prepared earlier, and add you to that. And then we have a server that the studio works on. But we do, because we had a whole lot of problems with COVID, and the studio used to work in-house, and we were all wired, and but we sort of, the structure was outside of the environment, because we were Macs within a window-based environment. And then COVID, we all had to work remote. So they had to quickly sort of figure out a solution for us. And then remote work became a part of just our day-to-day and how we did things. And that created some problems that we've had to solve. So we've moved we had all sorts of permissions issues using a server when it's a Windows-based server and your Mac and you're trying to access it remotely. So all sorts of issues. So we moved to a cloud-based solution for that now. Yeah. And we don't have the same problems. It's sped us up heaps.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
good positive changes.
Yeah. We got to pivot with everything.
A lot of good came out of COVID after all the bad.
For sure.
Yeah. So would you say that there's a best practice approach to managing workflow? And or does it change project by project?
I think it's always good to have a structure around it. Otherwise, it's just going to go crazy. Well, it's obviously always get a brief, preferably a very good brief.
Yeah. So the briefing is important.
Briefing is important, people. That gives you a good clear idea of what the problem is that you're trying to solve and what you're trying to accomplish. And then so I can talk about our process. So we get the brief, and then I go through that brief and make sure that I feel that it's communicating what it needs to communicate. I'll have a chat with the person who's briefed it in. It then goes to our person who's a workflow coordinator, and then they decide who's got the capacity, who's the right person, who's got the capacity to work on that, and they flow that through. And in the meantime, we also have a production person who does the print and the installs, so that's their speciality. So they will also be brought in if there's anything that needs to be printed, to discuss how we actually make that printed thing happen. And then it goes through the artists and that approvals process. And then we have a whole lot of compliance things that we have to tick off as well. So it goes through stakeholder management, legal team, compliance. Yeah. Anyone who needs a say gets a say. Yeah. That's our process.
Lots of different stakeholders in a big company like that. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about the people and culture side of things. So, I mean, something that I found difficult as a new manager coming into a management role is in a particular recent role, not my current role, but I was a coordinator first, so I was sort of a peer of everybody. And then I moved into a management role and, the dynamic shifts. So, I mean, was that ever an issue for you, or did you feel like you had a lot of support going into a management role?
I think that is always an issue. I think it is probably easier to walk into a management role from outside because people don't have that legacy of knowing you at a different point in your career. Yeah. And they don't have an expectation of you except to be their manager. So I think that is a difficult transition to make, but not an impossible one. Yeah.
We've both done it.
We've done it. We've done it. But it is a challenge. You've challenged to negotiate that change in relationship,
Yeah.
particularly around feedback.
Yeah.
People have an expectation of how you communicate with them.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have to be a bit more careful about what you say and how you say it, because it's got a different dynamic to it.
Yeah, people management is a hard part of the job, and nobody really teaches you how to do it, so you've got to figure it out as you go. And
Make mistakes and
yeah,
celebrate the wins.
yeah, celebrate the wins. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you have for someone stepping into a leadership role for the first time?
Get a good mentor. Definitely, you need help. And good support from your manager. Ask for good support from your manager if you are struggling.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Like, don't hold back. We all struggle. I mean, I'm not somebody who went, I want to be a manager. I've never been that person. I've never been that person who went, yep, I've got all the answers and I'm going to do it. I've never been that person. But one of the things that motivated me is that I felt that I could add value to someone's day by doing the role. And
that's nice.
Yeah,
it's a nice thing for a manager to think.
If I can make their day better by doing the role, then that's one of the things that motivates me.
Lovely. So sweet.
Well, that's the goal. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And do my best.
And so, I mean, a big thing for you would be how to handle keeping a team motivated when projects are high pressure, which is always in the SkyCity studio, as I know from experience, and also repetitive jobs. So how do you or how does SkyCity in general keep the team motivated?
Yes, that is a very good question. Motivation for creativity. A lot of it has to be internal. I mean, we're all experienced and professional people. We have to be able to self-manage to a certain, self-manage, self-leadership. I think it's really important to watch out for each other and watch out for those signs of stress. I always encourage people, go for a walk, get out. If I see someone struggling, just check in, try to make sure that that's probably where I excel more is in leading with empathy.
Yeah.
Whereas some people might be more like rah, 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 and I'm more like, tell me about it.
You're talking about me?
No, I'm not talking about you. Some people are like, yeah, let's get up and do this. And I'm more like, well, tell me tell me a little bit about where you're at.
It's noticing those moments as well,
Yeah.
which is something I've had to learn over time. It's like noticing when someone needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because not everyone's going to say so.
No, it's trying to keep those communication lines open and having the trust.
Yeah.
And, I personally feel more motivated if I know my manager sees me and values me. That's a huge part of motivation for me. It's you can go over a lot of stuff. You can overcome a lot of stuff if you feel like you're being seen and heard and valued. And I think that's sometimes more important than the more. But energy is important too. So it's all different. Yeah.
Yeah. I there was some study that I read about in my business studies where they were talking about for every 6 negative pieces of feedback, for every 1 negative piece of feedback, you need 6 positive pieces of feedback to counter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So,
so you need to throw compliments at people all the time.
Yeah, you do. You have to praise.
Positive reinforcement. You know, it's really important.
You have to notice the little things and praise people, because sometimes you do have to say things that, no one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
No, I don't like hearing it. I don't like hearing someone tell me you could have done it better. No one likes to hear that.
Yeah.
But, but part of being a professional or, anything is being able to give and take feedback. But as a manager, if you can notice those times that when someone's done something small, even the small things, just, praise. Call it out, praise it.
Yeah. Important.
I think so.
So something else that I've personally struggled with at times is age, and that's especially being a manager and especially being a female in the creative industry. So, I mean, I always ask myself questions like, am I too young to be taken seriously as a manager, or too old to be seen as relatable or technical? And then there's the whole, like, can I have kids in an industry that is mostly contract work? And, like this, it's something that's been a real issue for me and that I've thought about a lot over the years. And have you ever felt these kinds of pressures or sort of limitations, or has age never been a factor for you?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely, 100%. I think when you're young, you're like, can I ask for what I'm worth?
That's
money.
A big one, yeah.
And I do think being a woman has its challenges, and then particularly in animation, it was when I was in it.
Yeah.
It's probably different now. Very male-dominated industry. So many, don't get me wrong, so many lovely men within that industry. I've got some great friends from that industry, but it definitely is a male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
And I think that has played a role. And then going for, am I too young to be able to make, do I just need to pay my dues? Can I ask for what I'm worth? And then as you get older, am I still relevant? Am I still current? You know. I think there's that little nasty little voice that we have to ourselves that we would never say to another person. Like,
So you have a lot of negative self-talk.
Who doesn't?
Yeah.
Like, seriously.
I mean, I feel like there are people out there who don't. I was listening to a podcast, as the
Lucky
Diary
them.
of a CEO podcast, and he was talking to someone, and he was like, oh, it must be so weird to have someone in your head that's, talking you down all the time. And I was like,
what?
Isn't that normal?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, if it's not normal.
Yeah,
hey.
Some people are going around just humming to themselves as they walk happily down the path in the sunshine. But no, negative self-talk's pretty big in my head.
Yeah. Oh,
so what
that
about
makes
you?
me sad to hear that.
Yeah.
You're so clever.
You can't, sometimes you just can't avoid it. But,
a little bit of healthy self-criticism. Like, it's just, I could have done that better.
Yeah.
Or those kind of reflective moments where you can assess yourself and what you've done and where you're at. It's not a bad thing. It's just that you've got to put it in its place. And I'm saying that as someone who's struggled with that. But coming to a place now, like I said, it's a journey with my art to go, well, this is just me, and this is what I've got to offer, and I've found my lane, and and I think advice that I'd really love to give to anybody, but particularly we're talking about creative people, but anybody, is just lean in. Lean into what makes you unique and what makes you different. Just lean in hard, Like, if you love horror stuff, lean in. Look at Peter Jackson. He loved horror. And
and he did pretty well.
Do it hard. Go hard. Once you find that thing. Because you will always come full circle, in my experience, and find out that where you started was always where you should have been. But you've got to go on a journey to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it works if you go out there to try and prove that negative self-talk wrong, right? Whereas if you let it get to you, it's a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you've got to honour that that's happening. You've got to, you can't sort of deny it. You've got to honour that that's the voice in your head. But start to create a habit where you tell yourself, I'm not listening to that story anymore, That's not my story anymore.
Yeah.
So.
And has the part about being a contractor and children, how did you sort of make that decision? Because you were mostly doing freelance work.
I was.
For many years. So was that ever did you consider that for a long time before just making that jump, or, how does that work?
Oh, I put it off for so long. I actually had my son when I was 40.
Yeah.
I just turned 40 and he was born about 2 or 3 weeks later. And I did put it off for so long, and I told myself it wasn't what I wanted. I was focused on my art and my career, and it, at times it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah. I
didn't know how I could possibly be focused on a child and focused on work or creativity. So it's definitely, that's why I came to it really late.
Yeah.
I was 40 when I had my son, and
Yeah.
he's now nearly 10, so you know how old I am. But I wouldn't let it put you off. If it's something that you want to do, just do it. Like, life's too short, just do it.
Yeah. And do you find that having like a permanent position now, is it actually easier or harder than when you had a freelance?
Financially, it's easier.
Yeah.
Financially. But the challenge is that you are now working, constant hours, and you've got to juggle. You don't have, you've only got the weekends, and you don't have pockets of time where you can be available to that child, and so there's guilt associated, which I think lots of parents have, no matter what industry they're working in, is not always being able to be there for your child or struggling to be present when you are with your child. Those are the challenges lots of parents have. But look, if you don't let what you do for a career hold you back, if you want to have kids, you have kids. Just do it.
Not on the cards for me, but good
Look,
advice for
I'll
those
tell
out
you-
there. Yeah.
I'll tell you what having a child did for me and my creativity is it honed it. It gave me purpose, and it helped me really get clear on what it was that I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And it just gave me so much more clarity and focus and purpose to I just can't explain it. I would think having my son was the turning point.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't not do it, you know.
Yeah. And do you see any of your creative self in him? Is he picking up any of those skills?
He doesn't gravitate towards drawing like I do, but he's definitely creative.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of creative walks, and he's definitely creative. But we love storytelling. We used to do that a lot. We read books now, but when he was younger, he used to tell him a story every night.
Yeah.
And that was our thing. I would just make up a story. And they weren't great stories. They didn't have a beautiful beginning and an end and a middle and a journey or anything like that.
Yeah.
But they were silly stories. They were just stupid stuff relating to his day or my day or whatever. And that was a really great habit that we had. And so he loves stories now.
Yeah. So he's a storyteller.
He loves stories.
Nice.
We still do it if we're in the car, and we'll just make up a story as we're going along. So that's where our creativity combines together.
Oh, that's nice. And so, for reflecting back on your creative career, is your
It's not
passion,
over yet.
Yeah. But is your passion for animation and drawing still alive in you, or has it evolved into something new, or?
It is definitely still alive in me, and more to explore and more to come. It's not over till it's over. I've definitely got ideas and plans, and I think that's really important to keep that going.
And we sort of touched on this a little bit before, that you've worked for a long time as a freelancer, and then you've also worked permanent on a permanent contract within a studio. So in your mind, what is the biggest difference between the two? Because often when you're a freelancer, you're probably working in the studio anyway, but sometimes you'd be at home. So is there much of a difference? Is there a good or a bad in each situation?
Well, I guess when you're a freelancer, to a certain extent, it depends, how many clients you have. You can walk away. You can go, I'm not responsible for that. I've heard people say, not my problem, not my monkeys or whatever. What's that saying? Not my circus, not my monkeys.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Something like that.
Makes sense,
yeah. And you can sort of go, okay, well, I don't need to get involved in the politics or anything like that. I can just walk away. I can come and do my job. Be nice to people, don't need to worry about that kind of infighting or whatever's going on, I don't need to worry about it. So there's that from being a freelancer, whereas when you're in-house, you get dragged into things a bit more.
Yeah.
But you can stay apart from that if you want, but it's
more responsibility. There's
more politics, there's more, needing to make it work, because you can't just go, I'm leaving, my contract's over, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So I think that dynamic changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were illustrating, did you have to go on site to the publishers and illustrate, or did you? How does that work? You illustrating at home, and then they obviously want the hard copies of the illustration if you're doing them on paper, right? So does that mean that you just send the artwork to them, and you don't get to keep that? That's their property?
No, I have them actually.
Oh, right,
I have some of them. I got them back. Yeah, I've got my artwork back from my books. Yeah.
I wondered.
Yeah, no, I do. Some I did digitally. I've got those files, obviously, and then the print stuff, they did what they needed to do, and then I got them back.
Yeah.
Now I don't know what to do with them because they're just sitting in a drawer.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that you have to sign, like you're not allowed to do anything with those specifically, or?
Oh, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
that's my artwork. I own that artwork.
Yeah.
I give them the rights to use it for a limited period of time, and then after that period of time, they need to reapply to use the artwork.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still my artwork. I own it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's copyright, basic copyright.
So, looking back, what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far in your career?
So many good lessons. I think it's what we've touched on already. I think everybody, creative or otherwise, whatever walk of life, you've got something to offer. And when you are working in a creative field, you're going to do well if you express your unique voice and you find that thing that's unique about you and just be there and do that really hard. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest takeaway so far. Talk to me in 20 years' time. I might have a different opinion.
It's a very tough industry, but it's also a really rewarding industry. Do you think that creativity or money plays a bigger role in job satisfaction? And can you have both?
Ooh. You know what? If you're a poor and struggling artist and you can't afford to pay your rent and buy your food, job satisfaction, feeling like, oh, I did a great project. Yeah, it doesn't really cut it if you can't afford to live. Artists need to live. Difficult balance to get. If you're in the luxury of being able to choose great projects and get paid for them, cool. But you have to, unless you're really lucky, you've got to work your way to that point. That's a really tough question because I don't think an artist is happy just making money without any satisfaction in their work.
Yeah.
And that feeling of selling out that's why it is really important, I think, to develop that unique voice and then apply that unique voice however you can to whatever field you find yourself in. A lot of the artists that people probably admire have got a unique voice, and then they just sort of, they talk about it with trends. There's a trend, everyone's going that way, but how do you filter your skill through that trend? So it's that kind of thing. And that will give you more satisfaction while you're working in an environment where, maybe you're working on something that doesn't quite resonate with you. But ultimately, if you keep pushing down that track and you do things that resonate with you the best, then hopefully the jobs will follow and you'll get both. Yeah. But, if you're not making the money from it, eventually you might find yourself not doing it for money, but doing it for on the side or something, because everyone needs to live. You need to make money. Yeah. But I think a creative person always needs self-expression. That's what it's there for. Yeah. Yeah.
And AI obviously is massively impacting the industry.
Yes, indeed.
Are you optimistic about the changes that are coming? The potential changes that are coming? None of us really know. But
Yes, I am, and I think you've got to be, because it's not going to go away. And I think at the moment, I'm viewing it as a tool that is going to be really useful. We already use it, from time to time in the studio, and we'll use it more and more as it is able to bend with our needs. Obviously, it's not a perfect tool right now. Anyone who's tried to use it will have, 6 fingers on the hands of people and some really bungo faces. And got a really funny story about this. We had this artwork that we were trying to create, and we needed to alter some artwork. And it was generated in AI, and the person he was wearing a lab coat and he didn't have any legs. So we had to generate some legs and we did, drew the little box over it. And I don't know what the prompt was, what was generate legs or, add legs. And it added these fishnet stockings and high heels.
Yeah.
And
there's
really
some weird things that go on, eh?
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they had this like scientist coat sitting on a chair and then the legs were like fishnet stockings and high-heeled shoes. It was hilarious. So it's got its limitations at the moment. I'm sure it's going to improve as a tool. It's really important, as I mentioned earlier, don't run away from technology. Embrace it because, it is a tool that we can use, and the people who know how to use it are going to be in better positioned in their careers but also it's really important to know the basics. There's no point knowing a tool if you don't know how to create with it, or the basics of storytelling. If you don't know the basics of storytelling, if you don't know the basics of animation, if you don't know the basics of how to do a piece of graphic design, it doesn't matter what tool you're using. It's not going to help you if you don't understand. So learn the basics, but lean into the tool. That's my take on it. Yeah.
And what are your views on, potentially there's a lot of your artwork out there. What are your views on, or how do you feel about AI using, or, scraping the internet of people's, work and then
I don't
adapting
like it.
those? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like
for their own
it.
purposes.
Because like I said, an artist's voice is their style is so uniquely imprinted on who they are as a person. So AI can only replicate what it might look like, but they can't replicate the thought process or the values or whatever that goes in behind it. The concern is that the person looking into it won't know the difference. Because to them it's, that's, so-and-so's style and I like it. They don't understand why you chose, you would have chosen that design for a reason. You would have chosen those colours for a reason. They're your values and your decision-making and your experience. And something else can kind of replicate it, but it can't really touch on, that human part of AI really needs to be there. Yeah.
I also feel like some people don't really know what they're looking at. Like, you'll look on Pinterest, because I work in the art viz industry for my day job. You'll look on Pinterest and there'll be like an image where a light is just, only goes to a certain point and then there's like, nothing above it, and it's just sort of floating. And it's like, who would put that on Pinterest? Did you not notice that this is not correct? It's like people don't know what they're looking at. They're like, oh, that looks pretty, but they're not looking at the details, and so it's a little bit scary. That you'd think artists are being replaced for some of the shonky crap that's out there.
And I think we do a disservice to people if we only put crappy artwork in front of them, to be honest. I was challenged on this once recently because I was doing a little one-off class on illustration and storytelling, visual storytelling. And it was for kids' books, and I was like, had an example of something that I felt wasn't working, and I was showing how I would do it. And they were like, does it really matter? It's for kids. I'm like, oh, come on.
It does matter, This is your job.
It 100% matters, because I think we owe it to people to do good artwork, to be honest. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. We owe it to the people, like, people know the difference. Well, we're just saying they don't. But I think they don't on a level, but then you put something in front of them that's better, and they instinctively know that was a better story. That resonated. That's a better piece of artwork. I can see, I can understand, but you don't see the person pulling the strings behind what you see. So there's someone pulling the strings to make you tell, if you're telling a story, to make you feel a certain way from the artwork. And that's invisible work. But if someone's less skilled at that, maybe they won't notice, but they'll notice when they see something that's really good. And I think we owe it to the world to create beautiful things.
Well, yeah, that's true, and there's so much that goes on behind the magic,
Yeah.
the magic that what you see
Yeah.
on TV or what you see on
Yeah.
screen, and there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah,
There's a
which
lot
is
of-
what you're talking about. No one
Yeah.
sees the strings being
Yeah,
pulled
yeah,
behind, but
yeah.
there's strategy. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of skill. There's a lot of learning
Yeah.
that makes it look effortless, and you can just sink back and have an experience with what you're viewing or listening to. Music, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on in the background that you're not aware of. But I would like to think that if you saw something that was, you might not notice that it was bad, but when you see something that's really good, you go, I see that's really good and I can see why. I'd like to
Yeah.
think that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't, but yeah, you'd hope that they know the difference between good art and bad art.
But it also brings into that, the point is the commercial value of something. I think when you're working creatively and you're working not just creating something for yourself, but you're working in a commercial environment where you're producing to make money and you're producing for somebody, the question is there any value in this project of investing a lot of time and energy into making it look like the most beautiful thing? Is there money in this project? You do have to have that commercial sensibility as well if you're functioning as an artist in a commercial way.
Yeah.
You do need to be aware, like, is anyone really going to notice if I don't do this? Does it really matter? And save your energy for the things where it does matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good advice. So we'll talk a little bit about keeping the creative spark alive. So, I mean, you've gone from illustrating to animating, and now you're sort of managing a studio where you're a bit more hands-off. You're not the one who's doing the making. So how do you keep your creative spark alive?
I think that creativity morphs into all sorts of things. For me, what I'm applying my creativity to right now is life. It's a life journey, really, to do and learn something different. But within that, the role is essentially problem solving. You have to wear a lot of hats, and you get a lot of problems put on. How are we actually going to make this happen? And strategy is something that I'm pretty good at, which I've found out over the course of this journey that I am pretty good at that. And I apply my creativity in a more strategic way. So how do we make this happen? And that's the problem. I'm solving that problem. I'm applying innovation and creativity to that problem. So it's not creating the artwork as such, but it's creating a bigger picture piece of artwork. The artwork becomes that project. How do we position ourselves to be successful in that project rather than what does my picture look like?
Yeah.
So it is creative. It's just a different kind of creativity. So that keeps it alive. It's just, you got to be open to that process of learning.
And do you ever do anything these days for yourself? Drawing, painting, writing, storytelling?
It's more idea generation at the moment. Yeah. I think I'm pretty time poor, working a full-time job and having a kid. And I feel quite time poor at times. So it's more just conceptual stuff in my head and just applying it to different aspects of my life. I think it's really important. I've got some plans to be drawing and creating more in a natural physical way, but I have spent time just applying it to different parts of my life, I think. And exploring that.
And is there a time where you've sort of felt creatively burnt out? And if so, what did you do? What helped reignite your imagination?
I changed careers. I think I was really burnt out at the time where I changed my career because I'd done everything that I felt that I could possibly do at that time. I'd explored all my options at that time. It's not to say never, but at that time, and I was just I was really burnt out. And the process of change is quite a creative one as well. It's you you're sort of destroying something, but you're creating something new. And I think that gave me a refresh look at myself, my life, and creativity. And
So that mean you're a bit less nervous to make that jump into, quite a different job, or?
yeah, it was exciting.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I took it as a challenge. It was exciting. It was a new journey, and but I was quite burnt out by that stage. So it was a good change. Quite a drastic one. I mean, that's basically a career change, so maybe not advocating that. It's not the right thing for everyone.
Yeah, and that was when you went into workflow management, right?
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to someone stepping into a leadership role who might be feeling like, because they're an artist, they might lose their creative self if they spend their days with their heads in spreadsheets and budgets and, project management systems and production schedules? What would your advice be to that person who's saying, I don't want to do that because I'm going to lose my creative spark?
I haven't heard that as a concern for moving into. I've heard more like I'm afraid to step into the people management.
Yeah, people management.
I think that would be the main fear that I've heard.
Why do you think that is, that people veer away from people management?
Well, it is a difficult thing. You move from being responsible for only your own output to suddenly responsible for the motivation and outputs of a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
That's quite daunting. And when you're used to defining yourself as a certain type of person, to then alter that is challenging for people. They don't want to be put in positions where they have to make difficult choices. That's a hard one. I think that's the question that I think most people would, more so than losing their creativity, I think it's how, that redefinition of yourself within a role. And that, I think that's a tricky one too. And my answer would be, you just make sure you've got good help, good mentors. Be kind to yourself, because it's a journey and you're going to make mistakes. But if you're thinking you can do it, chances are you probably can. You just got to go. You just got to go through that process of learning it and finding those things about you. You can't look at another leader and go, I can't do it like them.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I can't do it like you. Got to go, okay, what am I bringing to that role that's special and different, and do that. So that would be my advice if that's your problem. In terms of artwork, just if you've got an opportunity to stay on the tools, then stay on the tools. If you're working in a small studio, you might have the opportunity to pick up a job and work on it. Or do it in your spare time. Just keep it going. But I do think, like I said, there are other ways to be creative. It's not just about doing the artwork. Yeah. It's just how you have to change your definition of creativity. Mine's quite broad.
Yeah.
When people come to me and they say, I'm not creative at all, I'm like, come on, yes you are.
Yeah.
My definition of creativity is quite broad. But some people...
It forms in different ways in different people.
Yeah, it does. I think everyone's creative in some part of their life. It's but some people are more inclined to move to that creativity becomes their primary function, whereas someone who is more interested in science or something, actually science sounds like quite a creative thing. I do have probably a challenging way of looking at creativity, but that might be their primary function is science. I prefer, or a more, they would call it more logical way of looking at things or something. That's the primary function, and the creative function might take a secondary step. But I just don't believe. I believe everyone's creative. Yeah,
that's nice. I like that. I like that thought that everyone's creative.
Yeah, yeah,
in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, that's been my observation.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Claire, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Welcome.
It was awesome talking to you today.
Yeah.
And you had some really great insights, and I hope the listeners enjoy it.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, 5 Digital. I have had the pleasure of working with 5 Digital closely for over 8 years now, and they are my go-to for all digital print jobs. They offer some really impressive embellishment options like digital foiling, metallic inks, and even fluoro colours, which always take the project right to that next level. And what's really stuck with me though is how supportive they've been from the beginning. When I was a young studio coordinator still figuring out the print world, they took the time to explain the processes and the terminology so that I could feel confident running projects. And that kind of generosity and care made such a difference. They're consistently delivering high quality work, and they've even won gold at the Pride and Print Awards 5 years in a row, so you know you're in good hands. If you need any printing done, check them out at 5digital.co.nz. I will pop the link in the show notes for you. A huge thanks to the team at 5Digital for supporting this episode.